I feel our focus needs to be in all of this is opportunity. This community has a board and a police service that is committed to continuing to make meaningful and measurable progress on equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is our commitment to you.
One session that we held with the OPS, community resource officers, which for me as a community member who came to this table looking for so many ways to bring change, but for the first time listening to OPS members talk about their own experiences, because we came from it with the community perspective, listening to what community members had to say about their relationship with the OPS. But when we had the opportunity to actually sit and listen from the OPS perspective, it put things in what we are trying to bring, because the change is needed for both sides.
I'll just start off by making one quick correction. I will be leading you here today. I have been invited to give you some opening comments that will hopefully stimulate some thinking, but I'll be learning and joining in and participating like everybody else here. The leadership is, quite frankly, dispersed right across the room. It is a little bit different from other forums. In fact, we'll be focusing a little bit more on action than maybe on discussion and recommendations, but there needs to be some healthy and difficult discussions. There needs to be some strong and thoughtful recommendations in order for us to move into action. We have always been inspired by our community, and I am increasingly inspired by the members of this organization, because we truly have a sense of what we want to do and the need to do it and the urgency to do it. There is a joint commitment to this, the public and the service working together to advance policing in the city. Policing is a shared responsibility. It is not the responsibility of Chief of Police. I have a set of responsibilities, but policing and public safety is a shared responsibility. Human rights, the promotion of it and the protection of it, is not the responsibility of the Chief of Police or the Ottawa Police Service. It is a shared responsibility. The advancement of equity, diversity, and inclusion in any organization is not the responsibility of the CEO. It's the responsibility of every single member of that organization and every member of society in which that organization operates. We all have roles and responsibilities. In fact, policing in its purest form goes back tens of thousands of years, in this country at least, to the Bear Clan. And there were people of the community, from the community, who provided public safety for the community. But it wasn't just their job, it was the entire community's job. The Peelian principles, Sir Robert Peel, very clearly stated, the police are the public and the public are the police. Let me be clear, bias, racial profiling, and other forms of discrimination exist in society, in every single one of us who are here today. And this means, obviously, that it exists in policing and it exists in the Ottawa Police Service. No matter how much I've quickly grown to love this organization and value its amazing contribution to the city, we as a group of human beings within an organization struggle with this, as every one of you do. These are not easy issues to face in any profession, and particularly in the policing profession, which is one of the most visible and important institutions that support and underpin a functioning democracy. I think, however, there has been an over-focus on the performance of our frontline officers. There has been an over-focus on the activities, thoughts, decisions, and actions of individual members of the Ottawa Police Service and any police service. And there has been an under-focus on the systems that bring those officers and members into the organization, promote and deploy them, the intelligence-led systems that identify areas of risk in the community and identify activities and actions and metrics and measures that put those officers into those communities. I will tell you very, very hand over heart, and it starts at the top of this organization from the person speaking at this microphone. Acts of individual bias, discrimination, or racism will not be tolerated in the organization, not at my level or any other level in the organization. But I will tell you the vast majority of the issues that we're facing is an organization that is not operating at an optimal level, that our systems are poorly designed, poorly implemented, almost never evaluated, and very rarely corrected, even when we know there are unintended, and in some cases devastating outcomes on the members themselves and on the communities that they're sworn to serve and protect. So, I hope to be part of the solution, but I know I'm also part of the problem. I help to design and implement and evaluate many of those same systems that I talked about that have failed our members and have failed our communities. And therefore I have a lot of skin in the game, both in terms of being part of the problem and ultimately being part of the solution. I'm going to do my best to speak more eloquently and forcefully on behalf of the Ottawa Police Service members, because as I've traveled across this organization and listened to them and heard their concerns, I want to, as best I can, again attempt to represent their concerns. The members feel that they have been overly blamed for these issues, particularly on the front line. The vast majority of our people are decent, caring human beings. The vast majority of our people live in the city. They receive the same police services. Their children have the same fares as Sahada has expressed here today. As parents, they have the same fares. They are concerned that they will not get equitable and effective and cost-effective services. They're concerned that the Chief of Police is tone deaf and is not acting on a fierce urgency from within their own ranks. They fear that when there is a crisis, like a violent encounter, a tragic death, that their chief will not represent them in the way that they want to hear. Even within the ranks, there is a division, because there are members that experience bias and prejudice and racism and sexism and homophobia within the ranks. And these are officers caught in an even more uniquely binding situation. They can't go home and take their skin off, nor should they. They can't go home and take their sexual orientation off, nor should they. They can't go home and take their race and their ethnicity and their religion off, nor should they. But they have to exist in two very strong, powerful communities. The communities where they grew up and were born into, and the communities where they come to work every day for 10, 11, 14, 16 hours a day. These are uniquely difficult challenges that our members face, and they never feel satisfied, and they may not even feel satisfied today with my efforts to articulate on their behalf this very, very difficult issue. We're fully committed to doing all we can, including working with all of our members, our board, and all the groups represented here today. There are three outcomes that I would like us to focus on. First, to prevent in every instance and address in every case individual acts of racism or discrimination by OPS members. Okay, I want to be clear. OPS members towards OPS members, and OPS members towards the community. We have a term in policing called blue on blue, when for whatever combination of reasons, officers confront each other and do damage to each other. So let's prevent blue on blue within this organization. Discrimination, bias, racism in all of its different forms. And let's prevent blue on you, the community. And I include our officers and our members within that you, because we are part of this community in large numbers. The second, to continuously improve all relevant systems. All of those who are being designed right now before they've been implemented, all those currently in place, and all future ones. Let's continually improve them through an EDI lens supported by the action plan that we're developing to ensure that our members are able to work in a bias-neutral organization, and that in turn they're able to deliver bias-neutral services to all of our communities in Ottawa. And the third, that we measure our success through third parties who come in and evaluate our efforts. And yes, using ongoing race and demographic-based data, and also to assess the felt and lived experience of our members and our community. We have to work together to move from reports and recommendations to greater action to achieving these specific outcomes.
One of the most significant and interesting, and really touches on explicitly on the comments that Chief Slowey highlighted, is that over the last 5 years there's been a clear pattern of fewer traffic stops in general. And indeed, if you look over the 3-year period, there's really, since 2013, there's been a 35% decrease in traffic stops. There has been significant reductions in the two groups who are most adversely affected. We have seen a reduction of 30% for young Middle Eastern male drivers over the 5 years, and a 23% decrease for young black male.
Our fourth recommendation is to experiment with new innovative protocols for engaging traffic stops. And we advise that the OPS retain experts to design and analyze new protocols, such as checklists for completion by officers prior to undergoing traffic stops. And the new protocols should be piloted, and they should be analyzed for the impact on racial disproportionalities in traffic stops.
We actually reviewed over 150 policy documents, training programs, practices, procedures, processes, all of that sort of stuff. We did 50 or more, actually, fact-finding interviews, and we did do an assessment against best practices and against what's called the Global Diversity and Inclusion Benchmarks, which is a widely used and well-known set of benchmarks around diversity and inclusion.
Thank you for allowing this Nova Scotian senator to join you today. So our table had an interesting conversation about the underlying issues that underlie a lot of what we've heard about. The chief slowly talked about racism and the impact of racism. And one of the things that we identified was the need to really understand the impact of racism. And while quantitative research doesn't allow us to get to those realities, qualitative research does. So understanding the impact, and then the service needing to really address that impact, not just on individuals, but on the whole communities. And then how that impacts, so the role of community policing, for example, and how community policing can be the face of interactions that happen between the service and communities. But naming racism and addressing it is really, really important.
So we know that goal, we know what the goals are, but really the difficult work, the hard work, is to figure out what are those activities, what are those things that we prioritize to advance us towards that goal that we're all seeking collectively here today as community, as members, as the Ottawa Police Service. And as you heard this morning, I think through a number of different speakers, that's not going to happen overnight. I think it's going to take many years for us to get there, but I know we are committed, and certainly under Chief Slowly's leadership, we're committed to making meaningful change around equity, diversity, and inclusion within the Ottawa Police Service. And we want to be leaders in policing, we want to be leaders in our profession in doing so.
I think it's time now that we work together and move from reports to recommendations to a greater action. I know we have a lot of recommendations here and we can't address all of them, but we really do need your help in prioritizing those for the next first year of this action plan.
Tangibly next year, what I would like to see, if I'm thinking of an ideal consultation, is that we have more young people at these tables. I think a lot of the things that we were discussing today directly affect young people, particularly those, we're talking today about things that affect young Black and Middle Eastern men.
To have community policing in the West End, Central End, South End, East End, so that people can still go out to have fun, play in the parks or play hockey on the streets, or so those communities can not have any violence rise.
It would be nice to see in 2020 that a panel of different community organizations is invited to a forum like this to talk with the OPS and different organizations that they're working with, especially if they're going to come out into these different neighborhood resource teams.
My first thoughts are, wow, the registration was as good as we could have expected. The exchange in such a short period of time has been nothing but helpful, constructive, and to the point. And we asked a lot of you. We asked a lot of you to commit to this time. We asked a lot of you to go through a lot of material and to try and help guide our thinking as we move into action.